So today I'm taking a request and reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I have not finished reading this book myself. I'm maybe halfway through. There are some words that I'm not sure how to pronounce, so I will do my best. I tried to look them up, but it didn't work. So I will begin. I'm not reading the whole thing, by the way. That would take forever. Just part. So the Chikai Bardo and the Chonyid Bardo. Herein lieth the setting face to face to the reality in the intermediate state, the great deliverance by hearing while on the after-death plane from the profound doctrine of the emancipating of the consciousness by meditation upon the peaceful and wrathful deities. The Dharmakaya of thine own mind thou shalt see, and seeing that, thou shalt have seen the all, the vision infinite, the round of death and birth and the state of freedom. Milarepa. Death's messengers. All they who thoughtless are, nor heed what time death's messengers appear, must long the pangs of suffering feel in some base body habiting. But all those good and holy men, what time they see death's messengers, behave not thoughtless, but give heed to what the noble doctrine says, and in attachment frighted see of birth and death the fertile source, and from attachment free themselves, thus birth and death extinguishing. Secure and happy ones are they, released from all this fleeting show, exempted from all sin and fear, all misery have they overcome. Anguttara Nikaya. The obeisances. I don't know that word. To the divine body of truth, the incomprehensible, boundless light, to the divine body of perfect endowment, who are the lotus and the peaceful and the wrathful deities, to the lotus-born incarnation, Padmasambhava, who is the protector of all sentient beings, to the gurus, the three bodies, obeisance. The introduction. This great doctrine of liberation by hearing, which conferreth spiritual freedom on devotees of ordinary wit, while in the intermediate state, hath three divisions: the preliminaries, the subject matter, and the conclusion. At first, the preliminaries, the guide series for emancipated beings, should be mastered by practice. The transference of the consciousness principle by the guide, the highest intellects, ought most certainly to be liberated. But should they not be liberated, then while in the intermediate state of the moments of death, they should practice the transference, which giveth automatic liberation by one's merely remembering it. Devotees of ordinary wit ought most certainly to be freed thereby, but should they not be freed then, while in the intermediate state, during the experiencing of reality, they should persevere in the listening to this great doctrine of liberation by hearing. Accordingly, the devotee should at first examine the symptoms of death as they gradually appear in his dying body, following self-liberation by observing the characteristics of the symptoms of death. Then, when all the symptoms of death are complete, he should apply the transference which conferreth liberation by merely remembering the process. The reading of this Thodol, what are those words I don't know, of the transference hath been, if the transference hath been effectually employed, there is no need to read this Thodol, but if the transference hath not been effectually employed, then this Thodol is to be read correctly and distinctly near the dead body. If there be no corpse, then the bed or the seat to which the deceased had been accustomed should be occupied by the reader, who ought to expound the power of the truth. Then, summoning the spirit of the deceased, imagine it to be present there listening and read. During this time, no relative or fond mate should be allowed to weep or to wail, as such is not good for the deceased, so restrain them. If the body be present just when the expiration hath ceased, either a lama who hath been as a guru to the deceased, or a brother in the faith whom the deceased trusted, or a friend for whom the deceased had great affection, putting the lips close to the ear of the body without actually touching it, should read this great Thodol. The practical applications of this Thodol by the officiant. Now for the explaining of the Thodol itself. If thou canst gather together a grand offering, offer it in worship of the Trinity. If such cannot be done, then arrange whatever can be gathered together as objects on which thou canst concentrate thy thoughts and mentally create as illimitable an offering as possible and worship. Then the path of good wishes, invoking the aid of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas should be recited 7 times or thrice. After that, the path of good wishes, giving protection from fear in the Bardo, and the path of good wishes for safe delivery from the dangerous pitfalls of the Bardo, together with the root words of the Bardo, are to be read distinctly and with the proper intonation. Then this great Thodol is to be read either 7 times or thrice according to the occasion. First cometh the setting face to face to the symptoms of death as they occur during the moments of death. Second, the application of the great vivid reminder, the setting face to reality while in the intermediate state. And third, the methods of closing the doors of the womb while in the intermediate state when seeking rebirth. Now we skip some notes. It's on my Kindle. Apologies, got interrupted. Part 1. The Bardo of the Moments of Death. Instructions on the symptoms of death, or the first stage of the Chikai Bardo. The primary clear light seen at the moment of death. The first, the setting face to face with the clear light during the intermediate state of the moments of death is, here some there may be who have listened much to religious instructions, yet not recognized, and some who, though recognizing, are nevertheless weak in familiarity. But all classes of individuals who have received the practical teachings called guides will, if this be applied to them, be set face to face with the fundamental clear light, and without any intermediate state they will obtain the unborn Dharmakaya by the great perpendicular path. The manner of application is, it is best if the guru from whom the deceased received guiding instructions can be had. But if the guru cannot be obtained, then a brother of the faith, or if the latter is also unattainable, then a learned man of the same faith. Or, should all these be unattainable, then a person who can read correctly and distinctly ought to read this many times over. Thereby the deceased will be put in mind of what he had previously heard of the setting face to face, and will at once come to recognize that fundamental light and undoubtedly obtain liberation. As regards the time for the application of these instructions, when the expiration hath ceased, the vital force will have sunk into the nerve center of wisdom, and the knower will be experiencing the clear light of the natural condition. Then the vital force, being thrown backwards and flying downwards through the right and left nerves, the intermediate state momentarily dawns. The above directions should be applied before the vital force hath rushed into the left nerve, after first having traversed the navel nerve center. The time ordinarily necessary for this motion of the vital force is as long as the inspiration is still present, or about the time required for eating a meal. Then the manner of the application of the instructions is, when the breathing is about to cease, it is best if the transference hath been applied efficiently. If the application hath been inefficient, then address the deceased thus: O nobly born, so-and-so by name, the time hath now come for thee to seek the path in reality. Thy breathing is about to cease. Thy guru hath set thee face to face before with the clear light, and now thou art about to experience it in its reality in the Bardo state, wherein all things are like the void and cloudless sky, and the naked, spotless intellect is like unto a transparent vacuum without circumference or center. At this moment know thou thyself, and abide in that state. I too at this time am setting thee face to face. Having read this, repeat it many times in the ear of the dying person, even before the expiration hath ceased, so as to impress it on the mind of the dying one. If the expiration is about to cease, turn the dying one over on the right side, which posture is called the lying posture of a lion. The throbbing of the arteries on the right and left side of the throat is to be pressed. If the dying person be disposed to sleep, or if the sleeping state advances, that should be arrested and the arteries pressed gently but firmly. Thereby the vital force will not be able to return from the median nerve and will be sure to pass out through the Brahmanic aperture. Now the real setting face to face is to be applied. At this moment, the first glimpsing of the Bardo, of the clear light of reality, which is the infallible mind of the Dharmakaya, is experienced by all sentient beings. The interval between the cessation of the expiration and the cessation of the inspiration is the time during which the vital force remaineth in the median nerve. The common people call this state wherein the consciousness principle hath fainted away. The duration of this state is uncertain. It dependeth upon the constitution, good or bad, and the state of the nerves and vital force. In those who have had even a little practical experience of the firm, tranquil state of dhyana, and in those who have sound nerves, this state continueth for a long time. In the setting face to face, the repetition of the above address to the deceased is to be persisted until a yellowish liquid beginneth to appear from the various apertures of the bodily organs of the deceased. In those who have led an evil life, and in those of unsound nerves, the above state endureth only so long as would take to snap a finger. Again, in some it endureth as long as the time taken for the eating of a meal. In various tantras it is said that this state of swoon endureth for about 3½ days. Most other religious treatises say for 4 days, and that this setting face to face with the clear light ought to be persevered in during the whole time. The manner of applying these directions is, if when dying one be by one's own self capable of diagnosing the symptoms of death, use of the knowledge should have been made ere this. If the dying person be unable to do so, then either the guru or a shishya, or a brother in the faith with whom the one dying was very intimate, should be kept at hand, who will vividly impress upon the one dying the symptoms of death as they appear in due order, repeatedly saying at first thus: Now the symptoms of earth sinking into water are come. When all the symptoms of death are about to be completed, then enjoin upon the one dying this resolution, speaking in a low tone of voice in the ear: O nobly born, or if it be a priest, O venerable sir, let not thy mind be distracted. If it be a brother in the faith, or some other person, then call him by name and say thus: O nobly born, that which is called death being come to thee now, resolve thus: O this is now the hour of death. By taking advantage of this death, I will so act, for the good of all sentient beings, peopling the illimitable expanse of the heavens, as to obtain the perfect Buddhahood by resolving on love and compassion towards them, and by directing my entire effort to the soul perfection. Shaping the thoughts thus, especially at this time when the Dharmakaya of clear light in the state after death can be realized for the benefit of all sentient beings, know that thou art in that state, and resolve that thou wilt obtain the best boon of the state and the great symbol in which thou art, as follows. Even if I cannot realize it, yet will I know this Bardo, and, mastering the great body of union in Bardo, will appear in whatever shape will benefit all beings whomsoever. I will serve all sentient beings, infinite in number, as are the limits of the sky. Keeping thyself unseparated from this resolution, thou shouldst try to remember whatever devotional practices thou wert accustomed to perform during thy lifetime. In saying this, the reader shall put his lips close to the ear, and shall repeat it distinctly, clearly impressing it upon the dying person so as to prevent his mind from wandering even for a moment. After the expiration hath completely ceased, press the nerve of sleep firmly, and a lama or a person higher or more learned than thyself impress in these words thus: Reverend Sir, now that thou art experiencing the fundamental clear light, try to abide in that state which now thou art experiencing. And also in the case of any other person, the reader shall set him face to face thus: O nobly born so-and-so, listen. Now thou art experiencing the radiance of the clear light of pure reality. Recognize it. O nobly born, thy present intellect in real nature void, not formed into anything as regards characteristics or color, naturally void, is the very reality, the all-good. Thine own intellect, which is now voidless, yet not to be regarded as of the voidness of nothingness, but as being the intellect itself, unobstructed, shining, thrilling, and blissful, is the very consciousness, the all-good Buddha. Thine own consciousness, not formed into anything, in reality void, and the intellect shining and blissful, these two are inseparable. The union of them is the Dharmakaya state of perfect enlightenment. Thine own consciousness, shining, void, and inseparable from the great body of radiance, hath no birth nor death, and is the immutable light, Buddha Amitabha. Knowing this is sufficient. Recognizing the voidness of thine own intellect to be Buddhahood, and looking upon it as being thine own consciousness, is to keep thyself in the state of the divine mind of the Buddha. Repeat this distinctly and clearly 3 or even 7 times. That will recall to the mind of the dying one the former, i.e., when living, setting face to face by the Guru. Secondly, it will cause the naked consciousness to be recognized as the clear light. And thirdly, recognizing one's own self thus, one becometh permanently united with the Dharmakaya, and liberation will be certain. Instructions concerning the second stage of the Chikai Bardo, the secondary clear light seen immediately after death. Thus the primary clear light is recognized and liberation attained. But if it be feared that the primary clear light hath not been recognized, then it can certainly be assumed there is dawning upon the deceased that called the secondary clear light, which dawneth in somewhat more than a mealtime period after the expiration hath ceased. According to one's good or bad karma, the vital force floweth down into either the right or left nerve and goeth out through any of the apertures of the body. Then cometh a lucid condition of the mind. To say that the state of the primary clear light endureth for a mealtime period would depend upon the good or bad condition of the nerves, and also whether there hath been previous practice or not in the setting face to face. When the consciousness principle getteth outside the body, it saith to itself, Am I dead or am I not dead? It cannot determine. It seeth its relatives and connections as it had been used to seeing them before. It even heareth the wailings. The terrifying karmic illusions have not yet dawned, nor have the frightful apparitions or experiences caused by the lords of death yet come. During this interval, the directions are to be applied by the Lama or reader. There are those devotees of the perfected stage and of the visualizing stage. If it be one who is in the perfected stage, then call him thrice by name and repeat over and over again the above instructions of setting face to face with the clear light. If it be one who is in the visualizing stage, then read out to him the introductory descriptions and the text of the meditation on his tutelary deity, and then say, O thou of noble birth, meditate upon thine own tutelary deity. Here the deity's name is to be mentioned by the reader. Do not be distracted. Earnestly concentrate thy mind upon thy tutelary deity. Meditate upon him as if he were the reflection of the moon in water, apparent yet inexistent in itself. Meditate upon him as if he were a being with a physical body. So saying, the reader will impress it. If the deceased be of the common folk, say, Meditate upon the great compassionate Lord. By thus being set face to face, even those who would not be expected to recognize the Bardo unaided are undoubtedly certain to recognize it. Persons who while living had been set face to face with the reality by a guru, yet who have not made themselves familiar with it, will not be able to recognize the Bardo clearly by themselves. Either a guru or a brother in the faith will have to impress vividly such persons. There may even be those who have made themselves familiar with the teachings, yet who, because of the violence of the disease causing death, may be mentally unable to withstand illusions. For such also, this instruction is absolutely necessary. Again, there are those who, although previously familiar with the teachings, have become liable to pass into the miserable states of existence, owing to breach of vows or failure to perform essential obligations honestly. To them, this instruction is indispensable. If the first stage of the Bardo hath been taken by the forelock, that is best. But if not, by application of this distinct recalling to the deceased, while in the second stage of the Bardo, his intellect is awakened and attaineth liberation. While on the second stage of the Bardo, one's body is of the nature of that called the shining illusory body. Not knowing whether he be dead or not, a state of lucidity cometh to the deceased. If the instructions be successfully applied to the deceased while he is in that state, then by the meeting of the mother reality and the offspring reality, karma controlleth not. Like the sun's rays, for example, dispelling the darkness, the clear light on the path dispelleth the power of karma. That which is called the second stage of the Bardo dawneth upon the thought body. The knower hovereth within these places to which its activities had been limited. If at this time the special teaching be applied efficiently, then the purpose will be fulfilled, for the karmic illusions will not have come yet, and therefore he, the deceased, cannot be turned hither and thither from his aim of achieving enlightenment. And that was